What is good in the hood, my friends? In this video, I want to break down the 8 most important things that you need to know if you want to start an AI automation agency or a tech consulting business and drive your first 5 figures of revenue in the next 2.5 weeks. If you really lock in and internalize what I'm about to share, I promise that outcome is genuinely within reach. By the end of this video, you're going to see that you're completely capable of building insane amounts of value for the businesses that you work with AI and no code. And you don't have to take me at my word. I know how some of this sounds, especially if you don't have any experience, but I have worked with a handful of people and helped them get started building their agencies. And they have all found success with these 8 pillars that we're about to rip through. Okay, so here is what I need you to do. Go make yourself a cup of coffee, or in my case, I'm going to feed my crippling nicotine addiction and throw one of these in, and then grab a pen and paper and gear up, because I spent the better part of the past 2 years gathering all of this information and boiling it down to a science. And I am as serious as the early onset heart disease that I probably have from taking too many stimulants and just perseverating this week, because I did not want to make this video. I am kind of terrified of being judged by a bunch of strangers on the internet. I'm brand new to YouTube, but ultimately I know that this is going to help you guys get started. And as I continue talking, what you're going to realize really quickly is that there's nothing unique or extraordinary about me or what I do. All of this is entirely replicable. Also, for those of you guys who don't know me, I'm Josh. I live in New York City. I'm at my fancy office downtown right now, which coincidentally is right across the street from a homeless shelter, which is just the most New York thing ever. And sometimes I honestly have a hard time explaining to people what I do. In the past month, just handpicking a couple of things that I built. I created a invoicing tool for a car calibration company that I billed 20 grand for. I rolled out a productized service in the form of a web app that basically creates pitch decks that look like Notion. And I pushed my first app to the App Store. You've maybe heard about what I do in building bespoke tech as running an AI automation agency. I like to describe it as tech consulting, in part because I feel like the AAA term has just sort of been co-opted by some dudes on the internet that are trying to sell a bunch of chatbot templates or whatever it is. That's just not me. I also think it's kind of a narrow way to think about what it looks like to build this bespoke tech, because we can build practically anything for practically anyone. The constraint is often just creativity, not technical sophistication. And that leads me to probably the most important thing to keep in mind as we move forward here. I know that this is tech consulting, but I don't know how to write a single line of code. Hard stop. You know who else didn't know how to code? You can learn how to do exactly what I do with 0 experience as a programmer, or even having worked in tech. Bullshit, this guy's a liar. If you need proof, here is a picture of me working the only real job that I've ever had, handing out samples of lupini beans at a Whole Foods. So how did I go from being a bean salesman to doing now between 70 and 100-ish K per month for my agency? There's no magic or luck associated with what I've been able to accomplish. I know that you can do it too. So let's jump into my secret sauce. All right. How do I explain this? I'm just going to be super straight up and real with you guys, because I have a super low tolerance for fluff. My average monthly retainer right now is around $8,500. And finding these clients, closing these types of deals, it's as much about doing certain things right as it is about not making certain fatal mistakes. And so that's kind of how I want to frame things. Now, with that being said, let's get after it and focus on pillar number 1, which is focusing on the logic of a workflow instead of specific tools. A mistake that I see people making all the time is they focus too much on the individual tools that we use in this line of work as automation consultants. They get really myopic about maybe what they build with or what they offer. It's like they'll go and they'll learn voice flow and all the nuances of it. And they'll be like, okay, I'm just going to build chatbots, or I'm just going to do this or that. And don't get me wrong, it's really helpful to understand the nuances of some of these different tools. And I personally have tools that I prefer using naturally. I mean, I use Airtable and Make.com and OpenAI constantly. And I recommend messing around and learning these tools too, but not just for the sake of being good with a given tool. Learning Make will teach you what an API is and how to use it. Learning Airtable will give you a practical hands-on understanding of what a relational database like actually is and how it works. And Obviously, building with OpenAI will teach you how to build with AI and incorporate it into your automations and your products. If a client wants to use Zapier instead of Make because they already have a subscription, great. If they're using a CRM that we haven't heard of, whatever. It's all good. Instead of becoming super dogmatic and rigid, we want to focus a layer higher on where the real value creation happens with the logic. The structuring of a formula in Airtable or the syntax of an HTTP request, like all that stuff is pretty easy and quick to learn. You'll be able to solve for that in real time once you've already closed a deal and started working for a client. And I know that it sounds a little bit daunting when you're just first starting to dive in. Maybe some of the vernacular that I just used is totally foreign. But if you are starting to feel overwhelmed, I guarantee that it's because you don't have a working understanding of the larger frameworks at play, like the ecosystem that these things exist within. Once you've built that understanding, all this stuff becomes so incredibly modular. And maybe you're a little more technical and you already understand exactly what I'm talking about. And you're like, okay, Josh, I get it. Let's move on. Deal. Let's move on. But before we do, I just want to call out one other thing, a sort of pro tip, if you will. Get comfortable reading API documentation. Again, this has nothing to do with programming or being a programmer. It's just a muscle that will allow us to make a certain binary distinction about what we are able to and not able to build. And this is so helpful, especially when clients get excited and just start throwing ideas at us. Now let's talk about pillar number 2, which is scoping your first project. One of the most compelling parts about this line of work, and one of the things I'm most proud of about Feeble, the agency that I started, is that our clients tend to stick around for, on average, between like 6 and 8 months. It's a relatively small sample size, but that is a crazy low churn rate, especially when you consider that often our clients are just kicking off on individual projects, maybe not knowing if they're actually going to roll that retainer over into month 2, 3, 4, and so on. And in order to basically set yourself up for success, what I highly recommend doing is making sure that the first project you scope is relatively contained. If a client comes to you and they know exactly what they want, and it's this whale of a project, and you in the back of your head are like, okay, great, this is going to be a $20,000 build. There's a time and a place to just say yes and go for it. But at the same time, if we just scope that project down, we kind of break it out into contained chunks, and we just start with that first bit, what it will allow us to do is knock that thing out of the park, create a ton of value, either like drive revenue or create a meaningful amount of operational leverage and time savings for our client. And that is going to set us up for everything that we do downstream. Like that big $20,000 project isn't going anywhere. Even if we decide to scope down and start with just like a bite-sized 5K kind of contained build, once we accomplish that thing, it's like the next thing is right around the corner. Pillar number 3 is not over-optimizing or operationalizing your business. And I know that that sounds counterintuitive, but it's a mistake that I see a lot of people make because they think, okay, I want to get started. And when I say people, I mean, I've fallen into this trap too. The amount of times that I've sat and, set up a ClickUp or an Asana task management system or a Notion internal like knowledge base, we don't need to have our own incredibly robust systems in order to manage 4, 5, at most, maybe 8 clients at a time. We can be making $32K a month. Maybe we have a $14K and $8K and a couple $5K retainers, and boom, we're there. 4 clients. Like to service 4 clients, you don't need a CRM. You don't need a bunch of SOPs. You don't really even need any internal automations. Like all of it can be done manually. You could maintain all of these workflows and all the communications, like everything that you need to keep track of, you could do it with a pen and paper, like genuinely. For me, I use Slack and Google Drive. That's it. It's truly a less is more approach. All the time that you're spending building your task management system or whatever else you think you need, you could be using to go out and prospect new clients and close deals and actually drive revenue into your business, right? That you get to take home. So don't overthink this portion of setting up your business. As a pro tip, just by the way, the only other core tool that I use regularly is called Dashlane. It's a Chrome extension that makes it really easy to share passwords. And I'll use this when I am staffing a deal with an additional developer because I don't want to be responsible for doing all the fulfillment. Now, the 4th pillar is to avoid limited thinking. when I was getting started, I was so concerned about market saturation. I was like, oh, there are so many other people doing this. And I had all this imposter syndrome. I'd never done any B2B sales. I was like, no one's going to want to talk to me. I was basically asking myself all of these open-ended questions as this really intricate form of procrastination. And I'll just share this with you. There are 33 million small businesses, small mid-sized businesses here in the US. All of them are looking to operationalize, become more efficient, incorporate AI, right? Do all of the things that we're uniquely equipped to provide. And they are actively looking for people that can help them. Remember that we only need a couple of clients to all of a sudden be operating a six-figure business. We can pick off one or two businesses out of the 30 million that are sitting there ripe, ready for the taking. Don't overthink it at the cost of execution. Most of the time when I talk to a business owner, they're not even like price shopping around. I get on a call with them and they are so relieved that I reached out because they've been looking for someone that they haven't been able to find in order to fill this sort of gap. They know that operationally they could be doing things that would increase their bottom line or save them a ton of time. And there just aren't that many people on the other side of this market, right? There's this incredible demand and this really asymmetric kind of dynamic where it might seem like there are a lot of people who are doing this. Maybe you're exploring this niche and you're thinking, oh, wow, Josh is so far ahead of me and all these other people are probably so much more equipped to do B2B and all. No. You can do this. Just go for it. Like, stop waiting. To get started, you basically need a payment processor, a landing page, and one portfolio project that you can talk about on a sales call. And that portfolio project doesn't even need to be something that you built for another client. It can literally just be something you created for yourself or for fun or in order to learn some of the tools. Alrighty, we are moving right along. Now, pillar number 5 centers around outsourcing fulfillment. I often find that people think because they engaged a client and they scoped a project and closed a deal, that they think they need to be responsible for actually doing the fulfillment, for going into Make or HubSpot or any other tool and mapping out all the different fields and actually building the workflow and getting super hands-on down in the nitty-gritty. And you totally can do the fulfillment too. Like, by all means, that's totally viable. That's how I got started. That's how lots of people get started. And it's a great spot to jump off from because it will help you cultivate that working understanding of the higher order mechanics of how these things are operating. But at the same time, you can run this business without ever opening up Make or Airtable or whatever. If you get really good at scoping projects and then handing them off to a third-party developer or to a partner, that is totally viable. Like, there's no rule that says we have to do the fulfillment, and our clients could care less. Like, nowadays, I've gotten busy, unfortunately. Like, I miss when it was just me and I was super hands-on with every single project that I took on. But now I have to basically staff every single deal that I close with another set of hands. That way, if I get sick or if I get tied up with something, I know that that client is still, receiving whatever deliverables they want in a timely manner. And that isn't like problematic. Our clients don't care. It actually signals a certain level of sophistication. And it doesn't mean that I'm not involved with overseeing everything that gets implemented. It's not like I'm not testing. I'm still middlemaning lots of the communications with the client. I'm thinking about the project at a higher level. I'm checking in with the developer all the time. But on the whole, all that our clients care about is a binary, did this thing get done? And does it create value for my business? As long as those two things are true, if you close an $8,000 deal and you carve out $2,000 and you use that to bring in a third-party developer and they handle all the fulfillment, great. If you're not technical and you don't aspire to be the person who's like in there building everything, don't let that stop you. You don't have to. But again, it is helpful to start from that point just so that you can cultivate this understanding of how these tools actually talk to each other and work. On to the next. Pillar number 6 is about niching down. And I'm of the opinion that niching down should be a function of your client acquisition strategy. So for me, lately, most of my deals have been coming from cross-selling relationships. And that means that those deals are coming inbound. I am not running scaled multi-channel outreach campaigns. I'm not funnel hacking. I'm not doing a number of other things that would constitute outbound sales motions. Clients are jumping on my calendar, prospects, I should say, and I'm taking calls with them. I'm learning about their business. I'm scoping projects. I'm closing deals. And then I'm kicking back some of that revenue to my cross-selling partner. We could talk all about cross-selling. We could talk about funnel hacking. We could talk about, again, scaled multi-channel outreach, warm intros, freelancing platforms. And there are literally a dozen ways to find clients. All of them are completely viable. You could build a really robust business relying just on any one of those individual verticals, let alone all of them. But again, whether or not you niche down should just be a function, I think, of whether or not your deal flow is coming inbound or outbound. If you're just getting started and you're thinking, hey, this is pretty nuanced and I'm kind of starting to lose track of things, here's another way to think about it. We're talking to talent agencies out in LA and wealth management funds in Miami and content creators and accountants, like you name it. I've worked with so many different businesses. And what happens is they will basically explain to us the working mechanics of their business model, what they want to accomplish, how they want to make it better, how they want to scale, the growth constraints that they're facing, all these different things. And if you're getting started and you're not sure what niche you necessarily want to explore, just talk to tons of different businesses and use that to guide where you feel like there is meaningful traction and market demand. Okay, pillar number 7 is about not getting too emotionally attached to any individual deal. When we reach out to clients, when we put ourselves out there, maybe we're creating content. I didn't even mention that when I was talking about other client acquisition channels. There are literally so many ways to get in front of clients. I mean, I was about to go down a little rabbit hole and talk about funnel hacking because as a consumer, I'm just constantly seeing opportunities and I'm often pitching businesses. Like I'll be at a wedding, I'll be talking to a photographer. I'll be like, hey, how are you uploading your photos and sharing deliverables? And right. And if I meet a photographer out in the wild, I might, really end up wanting to work for them after I've learned a bit about their business. But when you're working on closing an individual deal, don't let that stop you from going out and continuing to prospect and talk to new clients and learn about their businesses. Because what can happen is we become emotionally attached to an individual deal. We stop going out and prospecting. And then for whatever reason, something happens to the business that we really wanted to work for. And these things are totally out of our control, right? Like someone's relative might have died. Maybe they're pivoting their entire business. Maybe it's like Q4 and it is right around the holiday time and there's going to be a 2-week buffer before they end up moving forward. Like we just want to optimize for volume in our sales cycle and make sure that we're not getting hung up or like stuck on any individual opportunity. I tend to find just personally that my biggest revenue months are directly correlated with the number of businesses that I talk to in that month. And that probably isn't rocket science, but it just goes to show you that optimizing for volume will help you make more money. And pillar number 8 is centered around productized services and Micro-SaaS products. Now, one of the most compelling opportunities about this business model is that with all these client deals that we take on, we're driving revenue. It's an amazing lifestyle business, right? We can alone be making between 20 and 40K just ourselves. And all of that is basically profit. It costs practically nothing to run the agency on our end. The workflows that we're building for clients are all set up on their accounts. And before you even think it, no, that doesn't make our offer any less sticky. It actually ingratiates us more with the clients and keeps them coming back. But in any case, one of my favorite parts about doing this is with every project that we build for a client, it's almost like we're setting it up in a certain sandbox. And as we build, say, a scheduling tool for an electrician, what we're going to have the opportunity to do is validate whether or not that thing is uniquely valuable to that business. And if we find that, hey, this electrician is now able to take on an extra couple of clients, which amounts to X amount of revenue per month because we optimized the route that they were traveling between clients, or we more eloquently handled all of the inbound that they were receiving, whatever it is, we might then choose to productize that service now that we validated it. And we might choose to roll it out, and not just for other electricians, but by refactoring it a bit, we could basically go and implement this in a somewhat copy and paste manner for all of these other home service providers. And so what we're doing here is basically validating the solution on an individual basis, and then we're rolling it out in a one-to-many capacity for a number of people in the same niche with a similar problem set. And then from there, if we find that the value prop is still immediately evident, what we can at that point do is roll out the product as a micro-SaaS. And the reason that this opportunity specifically is so compelling is because agency businesses, again, are great. They allow us to just sort of cash flow and live this very fruitful lifestyle. But at the same time, if we ever want to turn around and sell our agency, the exit multiple is often low because there's lots of key player risk, and maybe it'll sell for 1 or 2 times trailing rev. but usually not much higher. Whereas when we build actual products that have sticky users, that business might be valued at that point. I mean, public SaaS companies trade at a multiple of like 20x their earnings. And it's well within reason that if we build a cool product, we could sell that for 10 times EBITDA or whatever it is. And I'm already in the process of building these different products where I have created something for a client, rolled it out to a couple other clients, and now decided, okay, this thing has been double validated. I'm going to turn it into a full-scale product. And in some cases, I'm working with other developers in order to create those products. In other cases, I'm just sort of hacking it together myself and creating an MVP of sorts. And in the cases where I am working with other developers, what I'm doing is basically paying them, but I'm paying them with dollars that I'm driving from the consulting revenue. So it's almost like they're free in a certain sense, right? It's just, there's a win-win dynamic happening like all throughout the value chain here, where the end customers who are actually interacting with the workflows that we're building are receiving better service from our clients, and our clients are happy because they're driving more revenue and they're using that revenue in order to pay and retain us. And so up and down, like we're in an amazing spot here. But it starts with consulting. It's possible that if you don't want to consult and you're really just enamored with the idea of having a little portfolio of Micro-SaaS products, that you get lucky and maybe some of them stick. But it's going to be really hard to find traction and validate product market fit by just jumping straight to building something that's intended for more scale. The opportunity to validate our product is so meaningful. And the fact that we can do it in this very contained way while still getting paid is like unbelievable. So don't just skip ahead because you're really excited. Make sure that the thing you're building actually has traction. And don't be deterred by me being like, hey, if you slow down a little bit, it'll actually help you get to where you want to go, because slowing down doesn't mean that, oh, we're sitting on our hands. Like, we're actively driving revenue all the while. Okay, guys, this video is getting longer than I intended. So I think this is a nice place to leave off. As you can tell, I could talk about any of this stuff for literally days on end. I mean, I have recorded 25 plus hours of content, and I make that available to people who work directly with me. I don't have like a scaled program or anything, but on occasion, I will take on mentees and work with them on a one-to-one basis. And I have all sorts of resources. I have a team of 5 full-time now. 2 people came from the program directly, where I got to know them so well. We became really good friends, and then I hired them outright. So just calling that out, if you want to work with me, if you're really excited about getting started building here, feel free to reach out. The link is in my bio. And otherwise, thank you guys for watching this video. I'm brand new to YouTube. This is a nerve-wracking sort of next step in my entrepreneurial journey. But on the whole, I just get so excited when I see that the content I'm putting out is actually equating to you guys going and servicing clients and making money and changing your lives in the way that this business model has changed mine. So yeah, on the whole, if you want to work with me, the link's in my bio. Otherwise, peace out. I will see you in the next one.